Sometimes a simple deflection is all it takes. With your influence and success insight, I'm Bob Burg. In my book, Adversaries and Two Allies, I share a story about Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, who was certainly a master of people skills and truly one of the very best when it came to making friends out of enemies and keeping unnecessary conflict to a minimum. One time, when a reporter confronted Lincoln, informing him that another government official had sharply criticized his judgment, the president responded to the reporter by saying, "I have great respect for that man, and if he has concerns, there must be some truth to it." This was actually quite common, and such responses disarmed what were intended to draw him into interpersonal skirmishes. It won the hearts of both friends and foes alike, and it allowed the president to maintain focus on the more important issues of the day. What Lincoln did was to utilize deflection. This means to softly parry a strong challenge or accusation, deflecting it into another direction where it totally loses all its power and becomes harmless. Just as in a boxing match, when one fighter throws a hard jab, the intended recipient will very coolly simply wait until the punch almost hits their face, only to parry it away with just a very slight flick of the wrist. In fact, the harder the punch is thrown, the less effort it takes to deflect it into a harmless result. This is what Lincoln did and what you can do as well. Someone says something negative to you or about you, don't fight it, battle it, or try and stop it. Typically, that'll have only the opposite effect, drawing you more deeply into the confrontation and providing fodder for the conflict. Instead, do what Lincoln did. Compliment the offender and leave that person and their comment without power to harm you. Two ways you can do this. First is if you're told what someone said about you, then, like Lincoln, express your admiration for that person and suggest that I have a lot of respect for Pat, and if he said that, there must be some truth to it. But what if you really truly don't respect Pat and you don't feel you could authentically say that? That's fine. Stay with the same basic principle, just adjust the wording. Perhaps, I've never thought of that, or even I've never heard that before. I've never thought of that, but I try and stay open to improving myself, so I'll definitely consider it. Thank you for sharing that with me. That parry or deflection will totally disarm the person who just related Pat's words. Can't argue with you because you didn't argue with them. Can't debate the point because you've politely refused to debate. And perhaps most importantly, they cannot quote your defensive response to anyone else, including Pat, because you didn't respond defensively. Can you just imagine that reporter wanting to obtain a defensive response from Lincoln with him adding, "That other person's a blah, blah, blah and doesn't know what he's talking about"? Then he could really have had a story. But Lincoln didn't oblige. Instead, he controlled his own emotions and reframed it with tact into a harmless nothing. So that was for when someone relates something negative about you from someone else. The second type is someone telling you something directly that's meant to be offensive, hurtful, or disruptive. When this happens, simply acknowledge that he or she may just have a point and it's something you need to consider. Or again, if you're just not comfortable saying that, or for any reason you feel it's not appropriate to frame it that way, simply thank them for bringing it up. You can then decide whether or not a future response or explanation is necessary. An excellent parry or deflection is to simply say, "That's a good question," or "You make a valid point." Please understand and keep in mind, I'm not saying not to answer and or stick up for yourself. Taking a definite position might be very necessary. What the deflection does, however, is it keeps it impersonal and it makes you look good and in control. It also allows for any information you subsequently communicate to be interpreted as best for all concerned and not indicative of negative personal feelings. When you become proficient at doing this and with conscious awareness, it won't take long at all. You'll find it to be one of the most self-empowering, not to mention fun, aspects of your interpersonal communications. You'll just blow people away with how cool and classy you are in terms of handling potential conflict and simply diffusing it. With your influence and success insight, I'm Bob Burg. Make it a great day.